It's UPBOptionMillionaires.com on this Tuesday, August 11, 2015. S&P 500 futures are down almost 0.5%. My goodness. We had a strong rally started in the overnight hours and into Monday morning. And then when the opening bell rang, a continuation of that move up to the highs of the session just before the close. And then guess what? Google came out after the bell, changed their name to Alphabet. They're now a holding company under the umbrella of an Alphabet. We'll get into that in a minute. But if you look at S&P 500 futures, though, later on, the Chinese came out, devalued their currency by the tune of almost 2%. Not the Swiss National Bank unpegging of the currency, which sent some currencies moving some 10%, which is a dramatic move for the currency market. 2%, a little more modest, but still speaks volumes for people who are selling products to China. Your items just became 2% more expensive. So you look at S&P 500 futures reacting a little bit negatively there. Also, crude oil continuing the pullback after a nice bounce. And look at that fat finger when the European market's open for trade. But we're pulling back over 1.7%. So many people talking about an energy bottom. I talked about it in my recap last night. Comparing an energy bottom call right now to saying Jason Pierre-Paul for the Giants is ready to play Pro Bowl type football. Get him on the field. Let's see him play. Same with energy. You got to see it go for a couple more days. You can't base it on one sharp move to the upside off the lows for crude oil. Let's look at Google because, I think this explains it. But really, you take a well-known company like Google and change its name to Alphabet. It almost sounds childish to me. It does. But investors and traders and analysts alike clearly love the move. We're going to get up over the 700 level, possibly move up to the old record high we hit just a couple moons ago. Is that a time to short the stock? I don't know. I might take a gander at some puts here because I think ultimately this gap is going to get filled. This is something I've been talking about throughout 2015 is going to record highs. It has. And you see the targets. I just see one now, a $900 target. They're just throwing them out there. It's like, hey, let me just throw whatever big target out there and see what sticks to the wall, doesn't roll off. So we'll see. Google's certainly going to get a nice bounce here this morning. Also to watch, a couple charts. Let's look at some charts. GoPro. You can see it broke out yesterday, had a sharp move to the upside. Let's pull it a little closer. Don't be shy. You pull up a drawing here. We have a nice consolidation phase, a breakout. If we can continue, this is a stock I started talking about really. I'll post the video up on my Twitter account, but in the middle of March, talked about a move to the upside, and it hasn't really seen a nasty sell-off since. A little bit of pullback in the middle of July, consolidation here. The only reason I was playing for a pullback yesterday, I actually got some puts to 6250s, is because we're running up against resistance here. So we'll see if we can hold this level. Right now it's trading lower, but of course everything's trading lower this morning with stock futures down 0.5%. But I think GoPro is a chart to look at for at least a modest little pullback here. Short term, a stock I think is going to bounce, and I got some calls in anticipation. Look at DDD, and I'm just going to pull off the drawings here, and you can just see the really nasty sell-off that has occurred from record highs here just at the start of the year. Rally up to the March highs, 76, has been pulling back over $20. So if you look at the action here, we just breaking out of oversold conditions for DDD. DD, not DDD. DDD, of course, Triple D stock has rallied off its lows as well. Look at this move. And so people talk about catching a falling knife. You're bleeding for many, many months, in this case, over a year, before finally starting to bounce here. And look at this. So those of you that were able to endure this pullback and timed it perfectly, you're doing pretty good there with DDD. Also, SSYS, a sharp rally off the lows. It's getting back up into the mid-30s here. Keep an eye on those. But again, I was talking about energy. It's so easy to sit there and call a bottom after this huge rally we had yesterday, over 3%. But if you look from a long-term chart perspective, this is something the bears want to see for the SPY, the S&P 500 ETF. A broken trend. I talked about this yesterday in my video. The trend here is up. The trend here is down. So any kind of bounce here, absence, a strong reversal to the upside that's going to be some sort of a V-bottom, means just a relief rally that's going to ultimately end with lower price. And I think we're going to head back down about 60 before we start to really get some sort of constructive move to the upside, if we do at all. With crude oil pulling back here, the U.S. dollar index certainly going to be watched as far as strength is going concerned. It's going to drag down crude oil, which also, everybody's talking about a bottom. I remember earlier this year, like, hey, here's the bottom for crude oil after it crashed from June 2014. But guess what? We hit even further to the downside. We're getting a bounce here, like, here's the bottom. Oh boy, I've got it. And guess what? We got a little bit of a bounce. We're going to continue to the downside. Let's look at a couple others. The same with the miners. Look at GDX. Huge move off its lows yesterday. But in the context of a 5-year weekly chart, look at that. I mean, that's like a flea on a buffalo. I don't know how. A fly on an elephant. Ooh. But if you look at a little bit of a bounce here, of course, we're just starting to break out of oversold conditions. So we can see a continuation to the upside. And actually this morning, in the face of the devaluation wars that are going on, gold futures are rallying. Look at that spike up. We started off initially with S&P 500 futures pulling back and the U.S. dollar index gaining strength. We had to move to the downside. We popped into positive territory, consolidated, and then look at the spike here as the European markets open up. Huge spike to the upside. Is fading a little bit. Gold futures are up 0.5%. My goodness. You gold bugs, you've got it going on today. But you can see gold miners here. This is something I'd look for a bounce. We're at 1429 at a GDX, which is the gold miners ETF. Let's see a continuation of that move to the upside. All right, I'm cutting into the time here, but one last stock I'm going to talk about. I talked about it in my recap last night. In the face of Google announcing its Alphabet transition, there's going to be a reality show on that. But I was talking about Apple because stock futures were higher. NASDAQ was higher. Amazon higher. Google up 6%. Apple was higher. And I said, for some reason, I just don't feel this yet as far as a bottom has been made for the stock. And I think we're going to come back to retest last week's lows before we ultimately hit new all-time record highs for Apple, which is something I've been calling for since May of 2013. All right, UPB, that's it. It is the Tuesday morning market video, optionmillionaires.com. Come stop by the chat room. I'll see you there. Goodbye.